So when the president wants to propose some funds for rescission, he puts that proposal in what's called a special message. And when he transmits that to Congress under the Impoundment Control Act, it is then permissible for the executive branch to pause the funds in question for 45 days so that the Congress can kind of work its will on that rescissions package. They can, approve it as is, choose to take things out, choose not to take it up at all, vote it down, any number of those things. But the idea is that, if we're ultimately aiming to cancel the funds, then they should be paused while the Congress decides what to do about the president's proposal. Now, because of the way the sort of appropriations process works, and the federal fiscal year ends on September 30th, there is a point at which, if the president proposes to rescind some funds, that 45-day clock on the pause will run past the date on which those funds would expire. Usually, again, there's some variation in this, but usually for money that's allocated for 1 year at the end of the fiscal year. And so the idea that, like, the strategy is here, if the executive branch proposes to rescind money really close to the end of the fiscal year, then Congress can do nothing. Congress can just let that 45-day clock run. And because the 45-day clock hasn't expired by the time the money expires, then there's no way it sort of has the same effect of canceling the funding without Congress having to take the vote to approve what the president has proposed. I know that's all sort of confusing, but again, not the way this process was intended to work. And indeed, the Trump administration, in the first time in the White House, floated this idea in 2018. The Government Accountability Office said that it was illegal, that it was not in line with what the Congressional Budget Act called for. And that is one of a series of things that has caused GAO to get pretty firmly in the crosshairs of both congressional Republicans and the White House. This opinion that they issued that said that the president can't do this, can't pocket rescind funds. We are also seeing sort of a broader effort to undermine GAO by congressional Republicans and the White House. The House appropriations bill governing the legislative branch proposed a 49% cut in GAO's budget, which would result in sort of really catastrophic layoffs. The House has also proposed limiting the ability of the Comptroller General to bring lawsuits under the Impoundment Control Act, which is a really key part of how that act gets enforced. So all kinds of things, all kinds of places where GAO is under some attack from some congressional Republicans and from
And the
from
GAO is
House.
specifically empowered in the Empowerment Control Act. I mean, they're not just sort of wading into this.
No.
They're given the responsibility to monitor impoundment decisions and process, and even to bring suit.
Yeah, the law is very clear that the Comptroller General has the authority to sue in federal court to enforce the anti-impoundment provisions of the Impoundment Control Act using attorneys of his own choosing.